Welcome to Where Does Food, the food history podcast where we repeatedly ask, is cheesecake cake? I'm your host, Nimble Fingy Long Top, a.k.a. Tim We Hunt, and with me as always is my non-food historian pal.
El Chapo. Wow.
El Chapo.
Yeah, it's just super short. That was a good AKA, though. Your list is adding.
Yeah, my names keep changing, but I feel like I have to remember to say that my actual name is Tim We Hunt, so people can find me.
Just wait till the end of the episode. It's fine.
Yeah. El, how you doing?
Tim, I'm doing all right, man. How are you?
I'm doing. You know what? I'm going to be honest.
Okay,
with
please.
The people listening. We just spent like 40 minutes of me bitching about life, so I'm doing okay. I've been better, but you know what? We're recording and I'm having a great time.
I think that's a fair assessment, honestly. You're in the boat. You're rowing the boat that we're all in.
Yeah.
So.
Oh, obviously we're talking about cheesecake.
Delicious.
And that's why I said we always ask if cheesecake is cake, because in the cake episode that we did, I believe you mentioned a little bit about cheesecake because it has the word cake
in it. Yep.
In it. Yeah. Do you like cheesecake?
I love cheesecake. Absolutely adore cheesecake.
When's the last time you had cheesecake?
Last week actually.
Last week.
El,
I think it's been 2 years.
Oh wow.
I think it's been forever since I've had cheesecake.
Okay.
I don't know.
We need to change this for you.
I can't remember when I last had cheesecake.
Oh yeah, we definitely need to change this for you. Yeah.
Which is weird because I love cheesecake.
But it's been so long.
Big fan. Here's what I think happened.
Okay.
Because I was researching cheesecake, so cheesecake's been on the brain.
It's been on there, absolutely. As it always should be.
So I think what happened is I got burned out on cheesecake.
Ooh.
Okay. I don't think I had too much of it. I just think people love cheesecake, and so I just felt like I was running into it too much. You know what I mean?
Okay.
Just at parties, at different events, I was always running into cheesecake.
You just needed a break from each other.
Yeah, I think I got tired of it. But after doing this research, I was like, I could go for a cheesecake.
It's been a while.
It's been a while since I've had a cheesecake.
Do you have a preference on
what kind?
Yeah. Are you like an OG?
I was actually that was actually my next question for you. I was literally about to tee up what kind of cheesecake you prefer.
Incredible. Okay. Well, I already asked you, so now I've already done
okay, right. You want me to go first?
Absolutely.
Listen, I am a sucker for like a strawberry or a raspberry New York style with the cookie crust. I'm a sucker for that. I really enjoy a nice graham cracker crust or
Delicious.
Like any sort of like crumbled cookie crust. I'm a fan of that over a pastry crust. I've had a couple with pastry crust and they're fine, but I do like a fruit cheesecake a lot. Big fan.
Yeah.
Of any type of cheesecake with fruit. I'm a fan of that. What about you?
I'm so interestingly enough, I agree with you on the graham cracker, like the cracker base. I think that's huge. I enjoy that crunch at the bottom of it because I think just cheesecakes inherently they're just really creamy texture. So having that crunch at the end of it, just it's really nice for me.
Yeah.
I'm a sucker for strawberry cheesecake.
Yeah.
Not as much for raspberry, but I'll eat it. I'll definitely have a fruit cheesecake, but strawberry cheesecake is where I would lean.
Yeah.
Of course, just an original cream cheesecake.
New York style.
Yeah, you can't go wrong with it.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, I will try any type of cheesecake though. Like chocolate.
Yeah.
Or cookies and cream, whatever. I'll do all. Yeah.
Yeah, one of my favorites that I've had was like a raspberry with a chocolate cookie base.
That sounds fabulous. Okay.
Which I loved that. So it's like a Dutch processed cookies, so that Oreo cookie essentially, that dark kind of chocolate
oh my
cookie
goodness, yeah.
as the crust with just a normal ass cheesecake like New York style and the raspberry puree. That fantastic. I absolutely
sounds so good. Absolutely
love that. I mean, the chocolate, the bitterness of the chocolate, the tartness of that raspberry mixed with the sweet kind of tangy cheesecake is phenomenal. Just that was probably one of my favorites that I've had. Something about
tanginess.
that is
yeah.
a good combo.
Wow.
And I'm a little hesitant on chocolate cheesecakes because
Okay.
I think cheesecakes are sweet and chocolate can get real sweet and decadent. And cheesecakes are both sweet and decadent. I feel like you get into dangerous territory when you're doubling up on that sort of like type of dessert, right?
Very
like,
rich.
When I think of chocolate,
at that point,
yes, you think of chocolate cakes, things like that. You definitely tend to lean towards richness when you think of chocolate cakes.
Heavily leaning into
desserts.
that, yeah.
Yeah, and when I think of cheesecake, I also think of something it's rich. It's cheese. It's cheese and eggs and sometimes sour cream, like things like that.
Oh my goodness, yes.
It's it is in general a pretty rich and decadent type of dessert. So you can get a little scary for me whenever you start throwing chocolate in with that.
Dark chocolate bake.
But
yeah.
The one I had where it was just like the crust accented with like raspberry and stuff.
I think that sounds fabulous. That sounds really good.
Love that.
Very classy dessert.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
You feel classy when you get a nice one.
You do, yeah.
And they
definitely refined.
And they freeze really well. They freeze incredibly well.
Exactly.
It's amazing. They are arguably one of the perfect desserts, I think, on planet Earth. I mean, they hold so well. You can't argue with that. It holds so well. So it's like 10 out of 10.
And because sometimes with the cakes, it doesn't hold as well. It gets a little stale tasting, if you will.
They for sure. Cakes definitely get stale, and that tradition of married couples like holding it for the year or whatever. That cake is awful after a year. It's disgusting. But a cheesecake after a year,
I think would be good.
Probably not terrible. There are 317 cheesecake factories in the world. So on a scale from 1 to 317, where are you ranking cheesecake?
Okay, I didn't expect there to be that many. I know where I'm gonna end up going with this, but we're gonna start off at 300. But
that's really high.
We could be at a perfect food situation with the cheesecake.
Oh yeah. You're just trying to leave a little bit of
some drama. Throw it in there. Yeah,
a little bit of drama for the episode.
Yeah.
All right, Elle. Before we dive into the history of cheesecake, let's take just a wee second for our ads and affiliates and things. You're probably just gonna hear me talk more.
Nice people.
Tonight at the Cheesecake Factory was the happiest that I have been in months.
So what is cheesecake?
What is it?
To answer the question I asked at the very beginning, is cheesecake cake? No.
Oh.
No, it is not. It is often considered to be a torte or a custard pie due to the fact that it is pretty much just a cheese custard, sometimes not baked, a lot of the times baked. And so you can't really call that cake.
A cake.
That's, again, custard pie, torte. Some people even, it's been referred to as tarts, things like that. So, I mean, it's in my opinion, I agree with that in terms of consistency, texture, and what you're dealing with. It is not a cake. I'm not even having a discussion. It's not a cake.
I'll second that. No, it's not a cake. Yeah.
It is usually sweet and typically has a crust of some sort. Now, they do make savory cheesecakes. That is a thing. And we'll even talk a little bit about its past and it kind of maybe not necessarily always being like, always having a sweetness to it, but not necessarily being like overly sweet, decadent dessert that we maybe come to think of it as for today's purposes. But even in kind of modern times, there are like smoked salmon cheesecakes where it's not as like sugar forward, right? Like the cheesecake filling is just going to be a more like kind of bland tart custard with like a smoked salmon.
Interesting. I had no
idea.
Like
okay. And like a buttery pastry as like the the bottom.
The bottom.
So so not common at all. I've never had a savory cheesecake in my life, but it does exist. They do happen. After all, you are functionally just fucking around with cream cheese most of the time, at least in modern times, or cheese curds or mascarpone. It's mostly just like soft cheeses that aren't. Yeah, and those are all usually subtle, a little tart. Like they're not necessarily. Those aren't sweet either. It doesn't become sweet until you add sugar and shit to it. So, so they do happen. And like I said, there are unbaked cheesecakes as well as crustless cheesecakes. They do exist. Not necessarily the most. I think unbaked is relatively common these days. Crustless, not as much. I think most people put bare minimum, like a graham cracker crust. That's a pretty common thing in the States anyway.
Yeah. Okay.
So, maybe in other parts of the world, they have a version of cheesecake that's predominantly without crust. Very possible. But in the States anyway, I don't think we ever really run into that sort of thing. Even fucking cheesecake bites typically come with like a little round thing of graham cracker crust. So there's a lot of variety when it comes to ye olde cheesecake. But that's essentially what a cheesecake is, a custard pie. So we're going into science time.
How exciting.
We've talked a bit about eggs as a raising agent or leavening agent, as you hear all the time on the Great British Bake Off. That's all leavening means. It just means to raise it. And we've talked about this a lot because we've talked about bread and cakes, and we've talked about yeast and all that stuff. Yeast is another big leavener, as we know. It metastasizes that sugar when you put it into a dough, things like that, which causes that release of the CO2, which causes the bubbles in your breads and things like that, right?
Right.
Science. So eggs kind of do a similar thing, and that's their purpose in baking a lot of the time, is to give your stuff rise. And it does so by another process we've talked about a little bit in the fruitcake episode and probably others, but it's the breaking down of proteins, or what is known as denaturing. Again, I mentioned it's a fruitcake. Alcohol helps the fruitcake not spoil because it denatures the proteins, essentially helps not, create bacteria, things like that. But also I mentioned in that episode, fruitcake episode, that when you think of eggs, like when you scramble an egg, you're denaturing the protein, right? Like the egg white turns from clear to white, and then so you can think of that. But since cheesecakes have a ton of eggs in them, it's a custard. What you're trying to accomplish is you obviously want those to denature, but you want to do it slowly so you can get a consistent texture as it rises and as it cooks. And so when you're making a custard of any kind, including one for a cheesecake, that's kind of what you're trying to do. You're trying to bring that up slowly to bring in essentially the function of that leavening action by denaturing the proteins over a slow period of time. A lot of the times, if you've ever fucked up a custard, if it quote unquote breaks, it's typically just you scrambled the eggs. So it can obviously create a bad texture. Cheesecakes can also crack. They typically have the tendency to crack. A big thing that people do when they make cheesecakes is they do it in a water bath, as well as when it's done baking, they open up the oven, but only part way. A lot of people do the spoon method, so you crack open the thing, put a spoon in there, and so the leverage of the hinge on the spoon keeps a crack in the oven, so that slowly releases the heat in the oven. Because again, you're talking about expanding and then like decompressing as it cools.
Immediately.
You don't want those cracks to happen, so you want it to go slowly. Just in general, kind of how heat and expansion and stuff works, right?
Right, absolutely.
Science. Science. When we apply heat to things, they get frenetic. And when we cool them down, they get nice and solid.
That's incredible. I didn't realize how science-backed cheesecake was. Thank you for that.
Hey, listen, most of our shit's pretty science. I mean, we talk about cooking a lot. Most of it's pretty science heavy. Sometimes we just don't necessarily touch on it because it's not necessarily the most important. I don't think we need to talk about the science behind like why a steak browns. Like we've done that before, you know what I mean? But for that one, I figured I'd mention it.
Absolutely.
We're back in Greece, baby.
Of course. Where else would we be?
And Rome.
Of course. Where else would we be?
Yeah, where else would we be? The first potential evidence for cheesecake in ancient Greece is around 2000 BCE.
Wow. Okay.
On the Greek island of Samos. So, long time ago. Anthropologists extracted what are believed to be cheese molds that date around that time.
Oh, get out of here. Okay.
So, we know that cheese was around for a while, probably even way before that. But that is like some, little bit of evidence that, hey, maybe they were doing some cheesecake stuff here. It wouldn't be until 230 AD where the writer Athenaeus, I don't speak ancient Greece, is credited for writing the first Greek cheesecake recipe.
Thank you.
The cheesecakes back then were made of simple ingredients, though: flour, honey, and cheese and wheat. Super simple.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
The cheese would be mashed into a smooth consistency, combined with the honey, the flour, and the wheat, and then they used to bake them on a griddle-like cooking surface. They were known as plakos, meaning flat mass.
Flat mass. Okay. Plakos.
Flat mass. So you can just imagine a big flat mass of cheese, flour, and honey.
That's what you said as an insult.
They would cook that up like a haunted pancake, and they would just munch on that. Cheesecakes were believed to be nutritious, very dense, and they are. Just
they still are. They still are.
But even specifically, like when you read those 4 ingredients, it's like, no, they were kind of right. Like they probably felt really full while
Absolutely.
they ate those, right? Again, these guys don't know nutrition science. They're going based off of feeling. So they probably eat a flat mass, and they're like, man, I
I'm
feel
great.
real
Yeah.
full and hearty, because it's just a bunch of dairy and carbs. But there's actually evidence that the Olympic athletes ate them in the first Olympic Games in 776
Oh, wow.
BCE.
Okay.
Yeah. And then Rome conquered Greece, as Rome's one to do, and the Romans would modify the recipe.
Of
They ended
course.
up adding eggs to the mixture.
Ooh. Okay.
Yeah, and sometimes they would put that
Excellent.
cheese filling. Excellent. And sometimes they put that cheese filling into pastries. So this is
Yes.
kind of your first sort of like, oh, it's getting thrown into a pastry type thing. Again, this is ancient times. Whatever delicious thing you're thinking of, just get it out of your head. It doesn't
not
look like that. It looks crusty, dusty, and gross.
A flat mass.
It's a flat mass with eggs now.
Yeah.
And it's probably in a piece of stale bread.
Yeah. No, that's a good point.
And with the expansion of the Roman Empire, you heard of those guys, right?
I think so.
Yeah, the cheesecake would expand and change as it hit different European
Good.
regions.
Okay.
Um,
It's a good food.
let's go to late medieval Europe.
Oh. Do-do-do-do-do.
Yeah, comic book transition.
Yes.
The cheesecake would make a bit of a change as it would reappear as a tart with a pastry base.
Now you have my interest.
Yeah, it's getting a little bit closer. And 2 recipes could be found in the first English cookbook, The Form of Curry, circa 1390. One being sambocade, containing curd cheese, egg whites, rose water, elderflowers, and the second being tarte de braai. The word braai was derived from the Old Norman for pounded, referring to the method of preparing the cheese.
Oh, okay.
And that cheese was a semi-soft autumn cow's cheese, egg yolks, and ground ginger. So those were the 2
Wow.
recipes in that cookbook that resemble. Again, I mean, it's a cheesecake. That's what a
That's
cheesecake
exactly
is.
what it
It's
is,
cheese,
yeah.
it's eggs, it's flavoring, and it's put in a pastry. It's a cheesecake.
All intent and purposes, cheesecake.
I'm trying to convince Elle what she doesn't need convincing. It's a cheesecake.
I'm like, it is. It is. Technically, you're right.
Yeah, no, it is for sure. For the ensuing 5 centuries, that's right, 5 centuries,
5.
almost every subsequent English cookbook contained at least one cheesecake
That's actually pretty cool.
recipe.
Yeah. That's really
Yeah.
cool. Yeah.
But, it wouldn't be until the 15th century that the word cheesecake would start being used.
What?
Again, these recipes I've been mentioning, notice that they weren't called cheesecakes. They
Oh,
were just called
tarts.
something different.
Yeah, custard. Yeah.
Yeah, so cheesecake didn't really make its way around until the 15th century, and they wouldn't even start looking like modern cheesecakes until the 18th century. So they would kind of keep this nebulous form of like beat up cheese with some egg yolks and flavor on some sort of pastry. They would kind of keep that kind of form until the 18th century, when we started replacing yeast with eggs in the pastry. So we've talked about
Game
this.
change, yeah.
We talked about this in the cake episode, where for a while yeast was being used. And so again, when we think about old recipes and we're thinking about this old food, we're not talking about eggs, but eggs were expensive, right?
Very
Like,
expensive. Yep.
they're already using, like, and you can see they're already using eggs in the mix. So like, ain't no way they're gonna be using eggs in everything.
No, there's no way.
But also, as baking techniques change and things come around and people try different stuff, you find out eggs can leaven just as well as yeast. And I don't know, maybe yeast was hard to find out. You know, there's a lot of stuff that goes on in global conflicts in the world.
Ooh, that's a
so
very good point.
Yeah, so like maybe instead of cultivating yeast, they were like, oh, well, we got some eggs, we'll just use some eggs. And that became, again, we talked about in the cake episode, using eggs became a very popular way to make cakes and also became a popular way to make pastries. And so when you replace the yeasts with eggs in the pastry, you get a more dessert-forward taste because yeast tastes like yeast. It has a bready taste. It, you know, when you think of yeast, it's, you know, it's bready. You kind of get bread. You get, I mean, I think of beer, but you know, bread, things like that.
Dessert's not necessarily the first thing I think about though when you say yeast. Yeah,
right.
Pizza dough.
And, yeah, right. And granted, we do have sweet treats that are yeasted doughs, but for something like the cheesecake, which kind of has this subtly, at least at the time, was like a subtle sweet.
Right.
You know, this wasn't again, these weren't modern yet, so it had more of a subtle sweet. So this big change from yeast to eggs really kind of moved it in that direction of becoming like way dessert. I mean, they had been used in weddings, things like that beforehand and all that stuff, but this starts to kind of move it towards that direction of the modern cheesecake. And then cheesecake would further take on a different form in the United States of America.
Dun, 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 dun,
Let's go across the pond, Elle.
Let's go.
Usually we said that when we want to talk about Europe, but we've been talking about Europe.
So now we're
absolutely.
absolutely.
So we're coming back to the States. Listen, the colonies liked cheesecake.
Of course.
Because Europe liked cheesecake.
Oh.
Some stuff just came over.
It just translated.
You know what I mean?
Over. Yeah. No.
Some stuff just came over. We were only so headstrong.
No, I'll take that. Yeah.
You really giving up cheesecake?
We weren't.
It's like, yeah, no, fuck those guys, but
like cheesecake though.
They got good cheesecake.
But we made it our own, it sounds like. Is what.
No, yes, we obviously. I mean, when we were talking at the top, I kept saying New York style, because that's its own style of cheesecake. Like that is.
Oh, it's not just like a regional
style of that is its own style of cheesecake. That is probably in the States. It's probably the most consumed version at this point.
Okay,
but it is consumed overseas. New York style cheesecake
Incredible.
is a thing
Okay.
overseas because it is its very own style. Again, we'll get into that, but we love cheesecake. By 1730, Philly had a place known as the Cheesecake House Tavern.
No way. In
1730, they had a place just doling out cheesecakes, man. Martha Washington's Book of Cookery and Book of Sweet Meats offered 3 cheesecake and baked curd pudding. The latter is a crustless cheesecake, essentially, curd pudding.
Okay.
All
Delicious,
of them flavored with rosewater, spices, and currants. In 1828 in Boston, Eliza Leslie had 75 recipes for pastry, cakes, and sweetmeats, and a cheesecake was also in that, accented with rosewater, spices, and currants. And then in the 19th century, the rosewater and spices would get replaced with like lemon or vanilla as flavor profiles changed. And then a big change in the 1930s happened. We stopped using cheese curds.
What?
And we started using cream cheese.
Whoa, the game officially changed. That this is the moment.
Let's talk about cream cheese real quick.
Let's please talk about it.
Cream cheese is a soft, unaged cheese with a mild flavor and a slight tang.
Yep, we love that tang.
Yeah, people love the tang. Love the tang. I often complain about how we use cream cheese in too many desserts now.
Okay. Yes.
It's used in low grade tiramisus because people just think you can swap out mascarpone with cream cheese, which is fucking ridiculous.
No, you can't do that.
People love cream cheese frosting. I'm not the biggest fan of cream cheese frosting.
Yeah.
I much prefer buttercream. But either way, I actually do like cream cheese. I just wish people would chill the fuck out.
That's a fair assessment. I think it's a very fair assessment.
People need to chill. It's good on a fucking bagel, and it's great in cheesecake.
And that's it. That's all. And that's all it can be good for. And that's okay. That
Go
doesn't
ahead.
make it any less.
Right now, Google buffalo chicken dip, and the top guaranteed top 10 recipes have cream cheese in it.
Absolutely.
Guaranteed.
100%.
Guaranteed. Like you don't need cream cheese in that. There are other creamy cheeses. Either way.
No. That is so funny. You're absolutely right. That everyone's like, that is the main ingredients. It's like, oh, we're making buffalo chicken. Go, oh, you have to get cream cheese then. Not like,
Yeah,
did you
you
get the
gotta get
chicken?
cream cheese.
Did you get the buffalo sauce?
Yeah.
It's the. Did you get the cream cheese?
Yeah. Half of all of
Thank you for that.
Half of all the instant pot recipes are cream cheese based.
I love it.
So, any citation of cream cheese before 1875,
Okay.
such as Martha Washington's Book of Cookery, that cream cheese, it was a slip coat cheese. So it's not like the same thing. It was a slip coat cheese, which is a rich milk and heavy cream mixed with rennet coagulated cheese and then drained and then left to ripen in cabbage leaves or muslin for several days until the exterior dried to form a loose rind encasing the creamy interior.
Wow.
Sort of like how brie is kind of like creamy on the inside, but has that like loose rind on the outside. It's a similar thing. So when they talked about when cream cheese was talked about before, that's what it was talking about.
Oh wow, okay.
But the cream cheese that we know and love was made in 1872. William A. Lawrence.
Shout out.
He was a dairyman.
A dairyman.
Obviously. In Chester, New York. He was actually trying to mimic a cheese known as Neufchâtel, which is a soft, crumbly, unripened cow's milk cheese. That actually got used often in cream cheeses as well at the time. And he was just trying to recreate that and then sort of created a cream cheese. And then 3 years later, a New York grocery firm approached Lawrence about making a richer version. And so he ended up adding more heavy cream, and it created a silkier and more spreadable cheese, dubbing it cream cheese because it's a lot of heavy cream in the soft cheese. So
bada bing, bada boom. That's it. Yeah.
Bada bing, bada boom. Now, back to the 1930s.
Okay.
As we now know, cream cheese was invented before the 1930s. So why did it take so long for us to get on board for using it with cheesecakes?
Yeah, Tim, why?
Well, turns out that cream cheese needs stabilizers. And before 1920, it didn't have any. So stabilizers were added to cream cheese in the 1920s. Without those stabilizers, cream cheese tended to break down and it would get kind of gristly in people's baked goods. That's not to say it wasn't used in baked goods. It was just harder to work with. It didn't necessarily always translate into a nice, smooth texture in your cakes, pies, things like that. So there were early recipes before like the 1930s. It's just that once they got some stabilizers in it, then it became easier to work with. The second thing that really kind of popped it off was a dynamite recipe.
Yes. Okay.
New York style cheesecake, baby.
Okay.
New York style cheesecake.
We're here.
So we get stabilizers, and then we get the cheesecake of cheesecakes. Arnold Rubin, a German Jewish immigrant who owned a slew of Manhattan restaurants, is credited with creating the New York cheesecake. He also lays claim that he made the Reuben sandwich, but we ain't talking about sandwiches.
I was wondering about that, though, so I appreciate him clarifying that for me, yeah.
So, Reuben claims that after sampling a cheese pie in 1929 at a dinner party, he acquired the recipe from the hostess, then tinkered with the ingredients, substituting cream cheese for curds, and then Reuben served his cheesecake to a high-profile clientele at his restaurants. In the 1930s, it garnered extensive renown and imitation by rival delis.
Ooh.
One of those rivals?
Ooh, yes.
Lindy's Restaurant.
No.
In August 1921, Leo Lindy, Lindy's like a nickname, Leo Lindy Lindemann and his wife Clara arrived in Manhattan from Berlin, Germany. They opened up a deli 8 years later near 50th Street, Manhattan, the heart of the theater district. Lindy's featured a creamy cheesecake topped with strawberries in a gel. Shortly after the Reuben's cheesecake,
quote unquote,
the Lindy's cheesecake gets the strawberry added and blows up. I mean, it's a big hit, and this is when the ball starts rolling. That's cheesecake starts hitting it big. There was a rumor that Lindy actually hired Reuben's baker to make the recipe. Don't know if it was true or not.
I was just about to ask if they're okay.
Yeah, I don't know if it's true. And in October, and in the October 3rd, 1948 edition of the LA Times, our good friend of the podcast, Clementine Paddleford.
Oh my goodness.
Claps for Clementine
Claps.
Paddleford. She's back, baby. Wrote an article titled, "Here's the Recipe for a Broadway Favorite, Held Secret Till Now." She's got me hooked.
That was a hell of a headline. Yep.
She's the best.
Always. Yep.
Clementine Paddleford's the best. Paddleford's version contained cream cheese and heavy cream and baked in a cookie dough crust that remains the most reliable of any Lindy's cheesecake recipe because it didn't actually ever get released.
Oh.
So that's the closest we have to go on is our girl Clementine Paddleford's recipe.
Thanks, Clementine.
New York would continue to experiment with different recipes. I just want to mention the jump there, by the way. We went, again, 1930s, all this stuff was being made. 1948, LA Times is reporting on it. So, again, New York had a cheesecake. Like, people knew about it. So, big deal.
Set the standard.
Like I said, New York would continue to experiment with different recipes, eventually making a crust with graham crackers. Graham crackers actually an American invention, apparently. And they also ended up adding sour cream into the recipe.
Interesting. Okay.
Yeah, it's a little bit of a mix, but apparently the sour cream helps liven up the texture in the cream cheese a little bit,
okay.
Which is good. Another big step forward in cheesecake, or for cheesecake in the States, was in 1949. Charles W. Lubin left a small baking business and founded his own company in Chicago.
Oh,
American City.
You're kidding.
Named after his 8-year-old daughter,
Adorable.
Sarah Lee.
Oh, no.
The Sarah Lee. His first product, was a New York-style cheesecake.
Get out of here, Tim.
Sold fresh to local supermarkets. 5 years later, he figured out a way to quick freeze his products.
Of course he did. It's on.
Then the company it went nationwide, as did the presence of cream cheese cheesecake, and cheesecake became a go-to for the American sweet tooth, as it would end up in about every fucking restaurant's dessert menu known to mankind. If you go to a restaurant, they probably have a cheesecake of some sort.
Wow.
Yeah. How's that for America?
Bravo, America.
Listen, and if you think for one fucking second I'm not going to talk about the Cheesecake Factory, you're crazy.
Okay.
Of course, I have a whole section on the Cheesecake Factory coming at you. It all started in Michigan in the early 1940s.
Michigan. Okay.
Evelyn Overton was a home baker, and she ended up stumbling upon a recipe for a cheesecake in her local newspaper. She ended up trying it out. She made it. It was awesome, and it became her signature dessert to make. Overton's friends and her family enjoyed her cheesecake so much, she decided to go and do a small bakery outside of Detroit.
Good for her. Okay.
The shop would close down.
Not great. Okay.
But she was still slinging cheesecakes out of her basement
Yes.
and selling it to local eateries to help raise her kids. That would not be allowed today, by the way.
No, but OG shit. Okay.
Yeah, that's Lay's chips level of like, you would never be able to do that.
Yes.
Remember Lay's chips was sold out the back of a trunk?
Yes, they were out here just moving their mixtapes.
Are you kidding me?
But it was Lay's chips.
Never in a million
You'd
years.
not be able to do that. FDA would fast.
No, you'd be shut down immediately. Once Overton's kids were grown, by 1972, they moved out of the house. Her and her husband ended up moving to California, and they decided to use their life savings to try the bakery thing again. So they ended up opening the Cheesecake Factory Bakery, and it was successful. They ended up getting a good amount of clientele. And it was doing really well. Her son, David Marshall Overton, saw a lot of potential.
Okay.
And he decided that he wanted to open up a whole restaurant.
Wow.
Based around his mom's cheesecakes.
Wow.
And so a year later, they opened up the first Cheesecake Factory restaurant in Beverly Hills. The Cheesecake Factory at the time only sold sandwiches, salads, and cheesecakes. So it was very simple. Yeah, it wasn't anything crazy. Like it is now.
Not their entire book menu, yes.
Then in the 80s, they kept growing and expanding, more restaurants opening up. And during that time, and this is fucking crazy because I'm about to explain why the menu is the way it is. David's whole thing is that he just tracked what people were liking to eat at the time. So if they were going to like a restaurant because they sold really good falafel, he would just add it to their menu.
No
bullshit. So during the 80s, that was his whole thing. And it fucking worked. Because they're still here.
Yeah. They're thriving.
In 1990, yeah, it's nuts. In 1992, they go public, and they get their whole look that they have now, which is like Egyptian, I think, or some shit like that.
I'm not sure what it is.
But in 2011, they actually put a cap on how many items could be put on the menu. Elle, take a guess at the number of menu items that is. It's the menu. It's the current amount they have now today.
Is that including cheesecake?
It's the whole thing. It's the menu.
I say that like it's like probably like literally taking away like 12 to 15 items. They probably have upwards of like 75 menu items.
Right. That's 250 menu items. They have 250 menu items.
I felt absurd guessing like anything over 100 and you come at me with 250. Okay, got it. Oh my gosh.
250. That's the cap. They stopped at 250.
Fuck. Okay.
But they swap out roughly 10 to 15 items to keep a nice little rotation in their menu selection.
Okay. To keep it Got it.
Yeah.
That's what they do with
So instead of
their,
like adding infinite amount of food, they'll just kind of swap out what's like popping off, you know? So like
with their 250 menu item. That really freshens it up a little bit. Got it. Oh my gosh, man. That's absurd. Impressive. Really committed to the bit. He really committed to the bit.
Yeah. So different cheesecakes around the world. Let's go over some. Why not?
Around the world.
There's a popular variant of cheesecake in South Africa made with whipped cream, cream cheese, and gelatin.
Okay.
And it's a like buttered biscuit crust.
Okay.
Like a crushed butter biscuit crust thing. Yeah. It's similar to British cheesecake. This cheesecake is more common in the British South African communities. Colonialism.
There it is.
Japanese cheesecake, they do a souffle style. So it's close to like a chiffon cake. Sugar, eggs, cream cheese, butter. The Philippines, they do an ube cheesecake. That's right, an ube cheesecake with graham cracker crust. Ube is just that purple yam. It gets milk, sugar, butter.
Okay.
Can be prepared, baked, simply refrigerated, and it has that nice little purple color. Let's see. Let's go down the list here. Russian style cheesecake. It's a dough ring that's filled with quark or cottage cheese. Okay.
Okay. You also be on the cottage cheese.
Okay.
I won't lie.
And that's roughly that's some of them. I mean, there's one for like every fucking.
I'm sure.
There are places that still use cheese curds. You know what I mean?
Made it their own.
Like St. Louis has like a butter cake thing, and it's like.
Oh, interesting. Similar to the.
Yeah, like it's like a cheesecake that has like cake on top, like a butter cake on. I don't know. It's a lot. St. Louis. Yeah. So that's different cheesecakes around the world. And that's cheesecake. So.
Wow, Tim. Thank you.
Wasn't that fun?
I like that. Culinary experience with the cheesecake.
The culinary experience.
Yeah.
That fun.
It is.
So where you at? You're at 300, man. Where you at?
No, I mean, I'm at 317. It's a perfect
317,
food.
perfect food.
But it's a perfect food. Perfect food. Perfect food, dude. It's you really can't go wrong with cheesecake. I mean, I don't know. We've talked about it. It's creamy. It's rich. It can be a little tart, tangy. It's sweet.
Yeah.
I personally really enjoy chilled things. Like chilled desserts.
Yeah.
So it's like, I don't know.
Yeah.
It just hits the spot.
I agree.
I don't know. Yeah. It's just really good all around.
Wonderful.
Thank you.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
And that is the end of the podcast. We got a perfect food. It's not the most rare thing on this on this show. Not with me, man. I love a lot of food.
Yes, as
Elle, we have a new segment.
Tim, what?
I haven't told you about this.
No.
We have a new segment.
Okay.
That I'm introducing on the 3rd episode of season 5. Elle, this segment's called Wreck My Beehole. It's where we give our recommendations to the people, and so I'm gonna give a Wreck My Beehole. Guys, go check out Austin Martin's music.
Yeah,
it's good stuff.
It's a good one.
Go check him out. Meridian Sky. You can find them on Spotify and Apple Music. I'm also going to recommend watching Shrinking on Apple TV. It's a fantastic show. Please go check that out.
That's a good one.
It's very fun. Yeah, Elle, what's you got any Wreck Your Beeholes?
I'm a little late on it, but I did finally watch The Menu. And
oh my gosh.
That's you want to about. Yeah, there you go. Right to the beehole.
That's a good recommendation for a food podcast.
Yeah.
Guys, go watch The Menu.
Go watch The Menu. It rocked my socks off. It was good. My mouth dropped a few times. It was
Yeah.
good. It was a good viewing experience.
Yeah, it's wonderful. That's the end of that segment. That's it. Wreck My Beehole,
Feels
guys.
good.
Go check that stuff out. If you guys want to find us, you can find us. We're out there. We exist. We have a website, and that website is shows.acast.com/where-does-food. On that website, you can follow. It'll send you updates for any episode releases. You can also listen to any episodes on the website. We also have a wonderful little button that says Access Exclusive Content. Because if you want to support us, we do have Acast Plus, which allows you guys to subscribe to us for $5 a month. That $5 a month, you get ad-free episodes, which I'm still backlogging. All the episodes from previous seasons will have the ads removed eventually. Give me time. Who knows where I'll be at when this releases, but I might be done. I might not be done. Either way, give me some time. It just takes time to organize that stuff. But not only do you get ad-free stuff, you get our episodes exactly one day early. We release on Tuesdays. You get it on Monday.
How exciting. What a great way to start your week.
Yeah, you get the inside scoop. So it's a good way to support us, easy way to support us. But if you don't want to support us that way, don't. Leave us reviews. We like reviews.
We do like reviews.
Leave us a 5-star review. If you leave us a 1-star review, we still like you.
We do. We will.
5-star reviews, share, that stuff helps tremendously with the algorithm. So for sure do that. You can contact us on Twitter at Where Does Food. Yeah, you can check us out on Twitter at Where Does Food. I'm not going to lie, guys. Twitter's becoming a useless plug because I barely use it. But if you guys do message on Twitter, I will get notified. So if you guys want to send suggestions or anything, you can do that. You can also I never do this, but you can we do have an email, wheredoesfood at gmail.com.
Yeah, there you go.
If you have suggestions, send us an email. If you want us to potentially hit on some foods, even like niche local things, like I'm interested. I'm down to literally try and research and turn anything into an episode. I mean, we got a lot of different formats and we try and keep it fresh here all the time. So if you guys have any suggestions or anything like that, again, you can check us out on Twitter at Where Does Food, or hit us up, on the Gmail, wheredoesfood at gmail.com. You can find me, my personal, on Instagram at Tim_and_Winston. You can find Elle
at El Chapo with 3 underscores in between the L and the Chapo, but it might be just changing to the Instagram handle soon. We'll see. Mike keeping continuity with Tim and Winston over there.
Yeah. She's still
I'm
over.
still on the hell site.
She's still over on Twitter. Last time I was on there, it felt kind of gross.
Yeah, not fair.
Either way, I'm not here to gripe about Twitter. That's what Twitter's for.
Haha.
It's the gripe about Twitter. Yeah, guys, you can do all that stuff. And another easy, I'm kind of doing this all out of order because we got new shout outs, so I'm all over the place. But another really easy way to support us, along with the 5 stars, is honestly just word of mouth, telling people about us, locking them in your car and playing it on repeat. That's always a good way to get people to listen.
That's usually a really solid way to get,
Yeah, that's always a really good way to get people to listen. Guys, if I just shouted a bunch of URLs and shit at you, that's cool, man. But you don't have to remember any of it.
Perfect.
Because it's all in the description of the episode. And the website and Acast Plus, that's all in the description of the show. I'm pretty sure I also plugged our handles at that as well. So you can just go to the description of the show and it'll be there. But it'll also be in each episode description, as well as any sources that we decide to put down there. We're the arbiters of this. You don't get to tell me what source I get to put down there. No, but if you want to read some of the stuff that we read to research this, which I always recommend, definitely check some of the stuff out if you want. It's not necessarily a bad time to read up on some of that stuff yourself. It's good. But yeah, that's all in the episode descriptions. And I think that's it.
Fantastic.
I think that's the whole thing. Nailed it.
Crushed it, as always.
See ya.